Welcome to the Yoga Energy with Katie podcast. I'm your host, Katie O'Byrne. I'm a yoga and Reiki teacher and I am obsessed with learning. I can't wait to share with you some of the things that we learn here on this podcast. So stay tuned for some weird and wonderful conversations. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 8 of the Yoga Energy with Katie podcast. I hope you're all keeping well. I hope that wherever or however you're listening to this, that you have some peace in your life, that you're feeling good, that you're healthy. I'm sitting here in my hotel room in Greece in a lovely little island called Samos. I don't think I have ever seen a more beautiful place. It's going to be very difficult to leave here in a couple of days. So I've just taken these couple of minutes. Paul, my husband, has gone down to the beach for a swim. And I thought, I'll just take a couple of quiet minutes to record the intro for this week's podcast. And I sit here in this really quaint little hotel that overlooks the sea. It was really random. I don't really plan anything when I travel. We were in Turkey. We knew we wanted to come to a Greek island. We got a ferry from Turkey to this island. We didn't have any accommodation booked. We got off the ferry. It was like 10 a.m. And we went to this cafe for breakfast. We met this lovely local man who owned the cafe, and he told us that this place was one of the nicest on the island, and he wasn't wrong. The beaches here are incredible. It seems to be this little hidden corner that we're in, which is lovely. It's not too busy. It's very peaceful. And the hotel owners, they couldn't be cuter. They're a couple, I reckon, in their late 60s or 70s. And they're so sweet. A beautiful room that overlooks the sea, the traditional blue and white paint that you expect to see in Greece. So, yeah, like I said, I'm just taking these couple of minutes to do the intro. And just after last week's episode with Ruchi Tawari, when we spoke a little bit about fearlessness, that's been on my mind a lot this week. And then when I spoke to Beth, who I talked to in this week's episode, she's a voice coach as well as a yoga teacher. So we spoke a lot about the power of the voice. And again, it's something that has been with me since I got into yoga. Yoga has really helped me to be able to use my voice. And obviously this podcast is a way of doing that, a way of expressing my voice. And while I always have moments of doubt and fear, I think I've come a long way. I don't think I could have done anything like this. Like 10 years ago, there's no way I would have recorded my voice and shared it with, I won't say the world, because the world is not listening to me. But yeah, I don't know who's going to be listening or how many people are going to be listening. And sitting here and expressing my thoughts doesn't feel as scary as it used to. And I've shared this with my students over the years. Mantra is definitely something that has helped me be able to express myself through talking. It's definitely helped me to have a clearer singing voice. Not that I'm a great singer or anything, but mantra has definitely improved how I sound when I sing. And like I speak with Beth this week, this is probably something I still need to work on, but when we get into this week's episode, me and Beth speak a little bit about listening and how important listening is. And this is all to do with the throat chakra. The energy around this center is all our communication. Communication is not just about speaking, but it's about listening as well. And it's something that I've really been focusing on the last couple of days, just sitting on the beach and listening to all the different sounds around me. And even a couple of days ago when I was in a different hotel, we were in a hotel in Turkey that at nighttime was quite loud. There was a couple of disco bars around us, and there was music playing till like 5, 6 a.m. Well, it was playing loud until 5 a.m. and then they just actually turned the volume down. We got up the other morning to get the ferry. We were up at 7 and the music was still going, and it was still going at 7:30 and I think even later. So yeah, it was interesting when I was trying to go to sleep to just have this non-judgmental listening practice, because it's often the case where there's loud music, we're trying to go to sleep, we get angry with it, we get frustrated, and we say to ourselves, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. So it was an interesting practice to lie there and just allow all the sounds. So yeah, I'm really excited for you to hear this week's episode. Beth has a very interesting practice. She's a trained opera singer. She's an incredible voice, and she actually shares a song with us at the end of this episode as well. Beth was born in England but has Irish family, and she is very into her Irish traditional music. She's very into folk music, and she's just a pleasure to listen to. She's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to how we use our voice. And I'm going to put this call out there as well, because she says at the end of this episode as well that she is looking for someone to help her explore sean-nós singing a little bit more. So if anyone out there knows any sean-nós teachers, or you feel that you can point Beth in the right direction to learn this style of singing, yeah, let us know. You can either message me or you can contact Beth. I've put all her details in the show notes. So just a little reminder, I'm doing online classes Monday evening, 7 p.m. Irish time. I will be back in Ireland in a couple of weeks. I will be, if the weather is nice. I believe that the weather hasn't been great in Ireland this summer. But if the weather picks up when I'm at home, I probably will do some outdoor classes. I'll probably do some classes in the park or on the beach. And then towards the end of August, I'll be getting back into my regular routine of classes every Monday and Tuesday evening, as well as some workshops. I'll be doing beginners workshops, and I'll be helping my current students go a little bit deeper into their practice as well. So yeah, have a listen to Beth Moran, listen to our chat, and I'll talk to you on the other side. Hello, Beth. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It is great to see you again. It's great to catch up. It's been ages since you were over in Ireland. Was the last time when you came to visit us?
Oh God,
the last time I saw you?
I joined you for Valentine's Day.
Oh yes, I forgot it was Valentine's Day. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was lovely. Had a Guinness with you and Paul.
Yeah, lovely little Valentine's date. So I suppose just to tell people a little bit about, we met, I remember it was New Year's, was it about 2-3 years ago? We were on a retreat in Spain, and obviously we didn't know each other before then, but very quickly we realized we had a connection with Kitty. We had both done one of Kitty McGuire's trainings, so we took a selfie and sent it to her. There's always was it a 5 or 6 degrees of separation or something? It's really easy, especially between like Irish and English people. There's always a way to find a connection with one another. And so we met on that retreat, and we kept in touch, and then you came to visit us in Ireland. So do you want to maybe just introduce yourself, give a little bit of background about who you are, what you do?
Sweet, cool. Well, my name is Beth. And for the past 5 years, I've been teaching yoga and singing. And now I'm in India. I've been here 6 weeks, and I'm still teaching online. But over the past few years, and actually this really started to come into light, actually in Kitty's training, because I remember we had to do like our practice yin teaching. And Kitty kept saying to me, she's like, oh, use your voice, use your voice, use your singing. But at that point, they had been two very, very separate worlds. Like my singing yoga life. And it was actually in that training where I think I ran out of what to say and I had them in like a pose and then I just started singing
Mm.
folk song. I think it was, what song was it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a very beautiful song. Um, and it worked so, so well. And from then on, I was just like, "Ooh, this feels really, really nice." Um, and yeah, I've been based in Manchester in the UK for 12 years. But all my family's Irish, so that was a big reason why I did that training with Kitty. It was lockdown. It was the longest time I hadn't been in Ireland, and my dad lives in Cork. And yeah, I think also in lockdown, we had so much time to go inwards and actually like figure ourselves out.
Mm.
And I had this big one, like desire to, yeah, like understand more about my family. And then also in lockdown as well, um, you could really notice, I noticed so much with the menstrual cycle as
Mm.
well. So because it was like Groundhog Day, every day was the same. You'd be like, oh, like 14 days in your cycle, you're like, bam, bam, bam. And then like 28 days in, you're like, no one go near me. And it's like, but I'm doing the exact same things. So I was like, there's something going on. And then really then being able to notice like the seasons and in lockdown when everything's happening, like seeing the difference between like summer solstice, winter solstice, and then
Mm.
especially the cusps like
Yeah.
Samhain and Imbolc. And then Kitty's training came up, and I was like, this is everything I want in one training.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, that and now I'm still like out of nowhere, I bumped into this spoken word artist on the road like 3 days
Mm.
ago. And we ended up doing an open mic together. And she was doing all of these poems about divine feminine. So I
Oh,
did like
beautiful.
um improvised vocals underneath, and then I sung an Irish song as well. But it was Dún da Chúil, which is like an Irish lullaby.
Oh,
Uh,
beautiful.
and so yeah, yeah, big love to Kitty.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I need to lock her down to get her on the podcast because I did do a podcast with her a couple of years ago, but I always I've said this a few times now on the podcast, but the first time I spoke to her it was before I did any of her trainings, so I hadn't a clue what I was talking about. I'm like, I don't know anything about the menstrual cycle, so it'll be interesting to talk to her now when I have a bit more understanding of yeah, everything that she talks about. But yeah, let's go back. So I presume you've always been a singer. Like, have you been singing since childhood? Like, even before any kind of training? Because you're trained in opera, is that right?
Yeah, which I fell into, which
Okay. So go back to the start. Like, when did you first start singing? When did you realize, oh, I'm a singer? Or did someone say something to you, or what happened?
yeah, so I was a musician. Well, singers are musicians. I was an instrumentalist before I
Okay.
was a singer. I didn't really sing as a kid, but my first opening to music was when I was 4 years old, and my mum taught me the recorder. She had like
Mm.
this red Christmas Carol recorder book, which she used when she was a kid, and like taught me like Good King Wenceslas or something. September, and then I'd come back from like nursery or whatever age I was, and I would from September onwards just play Christmas carols on the recorder. So, and then from there on, I started learning Irish songs because all my family, like every birthday, Christmas, Easter, we'd get together and just we had these four like trad books of songs,
Mm.
and we'd just sing them all. So that's really where the roots of my music come from.
Yeah. And that's one of my greatest memories of you is you and Paul sitting around the campfire on that retreat singing trad songs. It was like, this is so beautiful.
And so it's really, and then I was so lucky because I grew up in Luton, which is north of London, which is a funny place to grow up. It's been voted worst place to live in the UK many, many, many times.
Wow.
Uh, but with that often means that yeah, the government put loads and loads of money into the music service to try and help
Mm,
the privileged kids.
okay.
Um, and then like the spirit of the teachers is like insane. And it was like a second family because a lot of I was lucky enough, like, I come from a gorgeous family, but a lot of my friends didn't. And so it was like another family we had. And these
Mm,
teachers like nurtured us so much as humans as well as musicians. Um, and yeah, and it shows that like when you've got passion, when you've got time, when you've got the infrastructure, the money, and the teaching.
mm.
Like I used to sit in orchestra next to this viola player, and now he's like the best viola player in the world. And like whenever I'm like listening to classic FM, I'm like, oh, it's Tim. And yeah, so
It's
it
funny
just,
that you mentioned that about, money,
yeah,
because to me, especially opera and classical music would seem quite an elitist
yeah.
form of music. And I don't know anything about it, but when you mention opera, it just seems like very, uh, seems a bit posh.
No, completely and utterly. And that's like the weird kind of yeah, the weird twist of like all of these incredible classical musicians from Luton. Like
Mm,
and has been like a massive challenge growing up, like not then, but then in my like college days, my late teens, early 20s. But yeah, and then I started uh singing when I was in year four. So I think that's around 9 years old, 10 years old.
okay.
Um, and I was really, really severe asthmatic as a child. Like I was in
Oh,
hospital.
wow.
Like my attendance at school was awful because I was really, really ill. And I missed the auditions for singing
Mm,
classes like one to one. I was in the choir and I loved it, but I missed the one to one. And I was quite a shy kid. Like I was not forthcoming at all. I was quite a daydreamy kid and didn't have a whole lot of initiative. Um, but it was so weird. It's like I went to the singing teacher and I was like, oh, when are the auditions? She was like, we've already had them. And I was like, but I was ill. She was like, I'm sorry, I've picked my four.
oh,
And I was like, but that's not fair. I was ill and I couldn't audition. Like, as like an 8, 9 year old would be like, that's not
mm,
fair. And then so we made this and I wouldn't leave it, which was so weird. It was very out of character for me. And yeah, and from then on we came to this deal that I would have 15 minutes after school once a fortnight. And so I had that for a bit, and then it just came really, really naturally.
so you
Um,
fought for that as an 8 or 9 year old.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it?
which is yeah, it's so funny when you're as you get older and then you start to see everything come together. And
Mm,
you're like, oh, that's weird. Like sometimes, I don't know, there's like another part of you fighting for it because like more conscious self wouldn't have really. It's like my soul knew I needed to. I don't know.
mm,
I'm not
mm,
sure. But yeah, and now Kerry, that was my teacher. She ended up being like my second mum growing up. And still she's like, I love her to bits. Whenever I'm down south, I go see her. And it's really funny. We're actually on quite a similar path now. She's
mm.
like teaching singing for ages, and she's gonna retire soon, I think in the next 5 years. And she's got super, super, she's always been into spirituality, but it's just been
Mm.
going. And so she's
Say
gonna,
that again. It's just been going.
so she's got super into spirituality.
Mm,
Um, and now she's gonna like when she retires, deep dive into it.
okay.
uh, and learn. Like I think, yeah, I think she's learning how to like channel and stuff.
Mm.
Which then, like, there's a massive connection between the two, which is that's why I'm in
Yeah.
India.
So before we get into all that, because I want to stick with the singing for a few minutes before we get into the to where you are now. Um, so you were singing trad songs as a kid in Luton, and then you fell into your opera training, and so that was
Yeah,
when you were 8 or 9. So what about all through your teenage years? Did you continue on with that, and were you interested in other forms of music as well? And I know I said we'd stay away from this spiritual side for a moment, but was there that spiritual aspect there for you as a child as well, do you think? Or was it more
It,
in the
it's so
background?
It's really interesting. It's only until you're older and you look back. Like it
Mm,
didn't necessarily feel it, but like my nan was my best friend. And she, now that I grow older, I see that she was like the biggest mystic I've ever met on this earth. Like
mm,
she was constantly praying, like such a, yeah, she was a big, like she absolutely loved Mary, and was constantly like talking to her mum and like praying to her mum and all of that. Um and also she was just the like as like yeah, Irish, she was just like the best storyteller. And
mm.
and that's like a big part of what song is and what opera is. Like when you, and that's the other thing is also, yeah, when I was growing up, I was in orchestras, I was in choirs, I was in string quartets. Um, and
So what is opera then? You said opera is like a big storytelling is a big part of opera, but what is opera?
that's a really good question. I guess there's many, many facets to it.
Mm,
And yeah, like I guess opera and classical music, what's the difference between classical song and opera? Because classical song is art song is another way to put it. And I guess it's the technique used.
okay.
But then opera, op, I guess it's almost like film, but for music. Like it's different in each century. And then in the 19th
Mm,
century, Wagner really, really changed it, where it
mm.
became like Hollywood.
Yeah, okay.
Like, and it went next level of like, okay, we've got the theater, we've got the lights, we've got the like, and it would be like 5 hours long. So
Mm,
I always see opera singers like, what's the difference between being an opera singer and being, say, like a normal, like what's normal, but
yeah.
like, what distinguishes the difference? And I really do think there's not too many other fields of music where I've learned you've had to use your body quite so much and have an like virtuosity to your instrument,
Okay.
because in some operas you have to be singing for like 5 hours, and also never microphoned ever.
Oh,
It's
really? Wow.
so like I didn't go like fully into the opera industry, but I sung in many operas, and you'd sing to like, for me, like 500 people, and I was never microphoned
That's
ever.
amazing.
Like opera singers will sing to like 3,000 people. I'm just picking these numbers
So
out the
does your
air.
voice have to be louder than like a pop singer?
So yeah, yeah. And it also like, especially, yeah, you have to be able to sing over an orchestra.
Mm,
And that's just from your human body.
that's amazing.
It's insane. Like the
Wow.
science. That's the other thing as well. I think with opera, it's the science. It's like being an athlete, but for your
Mm.
in music. Like it
Well,
like
that's when you said 5 hours, I thought that's athletic level.
yeah, it is. It's like being an athlete. And then that's the other thing as well. Like, yeah, so it was and I'm really processing all of this stuff. It also
Mm,
means that like it was a bit of a weird upbringing as well.
mm,
It's like I remember being like 12, 13 years old, going in for competitions, and it was completely my decision. But
mm,
I decided to like, I gave up dairy for two months.
mm.
And like, my mom's like, "Are you sure you need to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I need to like keep my voice clear." And so there's a massive dedication to it, which sometimes is too much. And that's
So, so how did your asthma affect you then?
yeah. Oh God, yeah. It did. Like I'd go through spurts of like singing loads and loads, and then I'd get really ill and then
Mm,
stop. And so I was constantly in this cycle of like build, 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 and then just have to stop
mm.
and build, 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 stop. But yeah, my asthma got a whole lot better when I was 16. But before then, I was singing at like an opera day. I think this is when I was 13 or 14, singing at an opera day. There's an amazing mezzo soprano called Kitty Waitley, and she came from Bedfordshire and came back to just like hold a workshop for all these Luton kids. And I had a one-to-one session with her, and she was just like, whoa, and told my singing teacher, and then told me to audition for this school in Manchester called Cheetham School of Music. And then, yeah, I auditioned there. And then I moved to Manchester when I was 16. So I left home super early. And then it was then when I got to Manchester, then I don't know, my health got a whole lot better. I started
Mm.
yoga there.
Mm.
Mhm.
And
And
when you went to the school, did you have like dreams of becoming a famous opera singer, or what was
it
the
was like from like the
goal?
age of 11, like that was my dream. I wanted to
Yeah.
be, I was like, I'm going to be a soloist. And it
Yeah.
was, and even before then, before I started singing, I'd go to musicals in London with my mum.
Mm.
And I was a clarinet player at that point, and like my dream was to be in the pit of a musical. So it was like, it's so funny. It's like ever since, I don't know, I like ever since the age of 4, there was kind of no other like I knew I wanted to be a musician.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which then changed in my early 20s when you actually get into it. But yeah, I always knew that it was, and for me, growing up, music and singing was always my escapism. Um,
Mm.
it was like, I don't know,
And
especially,
did you
yeah.
always listen? Did you listen to opera? What was your escapism? What was your go-to type of music?
I love, well, yeah, my mum had like the broadest choices of music, and she was like in like crazy with it. It was like from such a young age we'd be in the car and a song would come on, and it's really beautiful. And it's really beautiful to say because my mum's passed on now, but she's like she was the biggest advocate for like if it wasn't for her like full steam ahead,
Mm.
uh, which is something, yeah, I really miss that presence because yeah, she made it all possible. But we'd be in the car and a song would come on, and she would like from a young age she would test us, be like, who's the artist, like what's the name of the song, when did this come out? And then she used to always tell us like those three things, and then she would also say a story of like where she was when that song came out. And so it's
Yeah.
so beautiful now that she's passed on. These songs will come on. Like, you know the song Electric Dreams? Da, 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 da,
Yes.
da.
Yes.
Yeah, from like the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever that song comes up, I always remember her and her mum were on a flight to Australia to see
Mm.
my great uncle. And they were on the plane, and you could get free like wine and
Yeah.
champagne. And they were just saying that they got really drunk on the plane listening to Electric Dreams. And it's just so,
Oh.
and it just shows like, and that's what music's about for me.
Yeah, and I think it is for so many people as well. It always invokes a memory, doesn't it? That everybody always has their special songs, which is why we have songs for certain ceremonies like weddings and funerals, and we have songs to celebrate things, and it's yeah, it invokes something really deep within us, doesn't it?
And connects you to like
Mm.
it's, yeah, it's so special. And also I think there's nothing which, well, actually I think it's music, breathing and
Mm.
dancing are three of the quickest ways to shift energy.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
um
And I just, when you're talking about that, a memory I had was like, I don't know, I was about 16 or something. And like, as a teenager, I remember like music used to help me like feel the emotion that I was feeling. So Eminem was huge when I was about 16. And I really got into rap and things like that. And I was able to get really angry with the music because that's what I needed at the time. And, and then I would feel great after listening to it.
yeah, it's the biggest catalyst. Yeah, like when I was, yeah, so when I was when I was in year 3, so I was like 11 years old, for some reason I got really into Guns N' Roses. And
Oh,
it's
they're
like,
great.
yeah, and it was like, yeah. And then and Motown as well. I loved Motown. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, as I was a teenager, of course, I was big into like the emo phase, like My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, and then yeah, as a teenager, then like mid-teens, I got I was obsessed by the Killers as well.
Yes, they were
I
brilliant.
fancied Brandon Flowers so much. Um, and then yeah, in my like 13, 14, then Mumford and Sons came along, which
Oh, I forgot
yeah,
about them. They were brilliant.
that opened up this whole world of like new folk. So then I got into Laura Marling and all of those artists. And then like slowly, slowly, slowly in getting onto that path, it's then brought me more towards the folk again.
Mm,
But it's like very slowly, slowly, slowly.
mm. And I was thinking there, because like I said, I don't know anything about opera, and I've probably heard opera in the background or in movies or something. So is there any one person or a song that you'd recommend for someone to listen to, like to get into it or to be like, oh, actually, this is something that I could listen to?
Oh, there's, there's so much. I think, and that's the other thing as well. Like, oh, there's so many different, like for me, like I think choral music is so stunning.
Okay.
Um, and then there's like orchestral stuff, but this isn't answering your question.
That's
Uh,
okay. Even if you think of something later, you can message me and I'll put it in the show notes or something. But
but also, yeah, I can send a few songs over
yeah.
of like even like there's like O mio bambino caro by Puccini, which that's also super short. So it's like 2 minutes long, but it is stunning.
So is
Um,
opera, is it just because what you said there, I presume the title of that was Italian? It sounds
yes.
Italian. So is opera like from Italy? Is that where it originated, or what's the roots of it?
Well, this is the other thing as well. Sorry, I never have straight answers to
That's
anything.
okay. No, that's good. If you had straight answers, the podcast would be really short, and we don't want
Yeah,
that.
that's
So
true. That's true. So that's like another like voyage I'm on at the moment of like where does music and sound come from? Because
mm,
yeah, you think that like okay, Italian opera, but then actually a massive part of where opera began was like in church music in and then coming back to what you were saying earlier, it's like it was often created for the courts or for like
mm,
regal purposes or for ceremonies, but then
mm,
thinking like, well, then where did that come from? And
mm,
then go back and back and back. And then I've got I'm super like interested in folk, um, and of course Irish folk. But then like while I'm here, I'm learning raga, like Indian raga, and like
okay.
listening to those sound worlds and then even just like listening to like Sufi music or
Mm.
listening to like some Turkish music or music from like Afghanistan. And then when you like go through and through deeper and deeper, you start to hear that some of the sound worlds are quite similar.
Yes, I've heard that in Irish and Indian music. I've heard. I'm like, is that Irish? No, it's it. No, you're not sure sometimes.
Absolutely. And like and then you go back and back and back. And then it's like, where did sound come from? And
Mm,
like in yoga, they believe like Om.
mm,
Um, but then sound is everywhere and it's all
yeah.
around. It would have been how we communicated back in time as well. Like, and I think that idea of ritual and ceremony,
Mm.
a massive part of the roots.
Yeah, and because it is that, it's like an emotional expression. It's a way to express ourselves, isn't it?
And like
So,
if you like go back to our like cave selves,
mm,
like we didn't know that was singing. It was just like we didn't even know this was talking. It's
yeah.
just and that's like whenever I'm teaching, I think that's one of the biggest things. It's like it's there's no difference between talking and singing.
Mm,
Just sound. And then also then like, I was on my balcony really late the other night and with a friend and we were just hearing the drop of rain and he
mm,
was just like, "Oh, how far do you think that's going?" And then like you can kind of tell by the pitch of a sound when it's really high, when it's really low of how far that is. And it's like actually, oh, it is a bit like trippy, but like
mm,
music everywhere. Like it's
mm,
like what is music, what is sound, what is the difference, what is singing, what is speaking, like it's all expression.
yeah, and listening is a really effective way to bring yourself into a meditation as well, isn't it?
My God, since being here, I think Yeah, because I came to India and I knew I needed to leave Manchester. I'd been there 12 years and it was time, but I didn't. And India is just the most stunning place, like
Mm.
difficult at times, but like it gets you where you need to be. Um, and yeah, I was very open. I like set my intentions. I was like, just get me deeper to where I need to be. Like, I don't know what
Mm.
that is, India. You know better than I do. Show me. And it's so much about listening. That's been like how to like up level is to listen. And I think that's so many things as well. Like it's all happening. Like it's all happening. It's just like allowing it to happen and actually kind of join onto that flow rather than make.
Yeah.
And yeah, the deeper my music gets, the more it's just about like the inhale is to receive, the exhale is to give. And and then it's so and that's what's so like I've trained for so long. It's been like 20 years and then like deeply in music institutions for like how long was that? Like 7 years. And then like teaching for like 5 years deeply. And yeah, now it's just come back and come down to the point of like inhale, let yourself receive, let your body soften, take in, exhale, that is your expression.
Mm.
Of course, there's so much towards it. Like I've trained my body for a long time, but
So
the
talk to me
reality,
about that. What's the training of the body then? And is it different for different types of singers?
I don't know so much about that. That's something which I feel like I'm uncovering because I've been very, very much into just the classical way. The
Mm.
classical way is a lot of exercises. And yeah, I think I can only speak from my own experience.
Mm.
And the only styles I've really like delved into have been, of course, opera and classical, and now I'm delving more into folk.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can see a big difference is in classical, you're wanting to make a completely consistent sound from your lower to your middle to your upper. So there's no breaks in the sound. I always like to view it like you have like a thread within your sound. So you
Mm.
have this complete consistency and it's extremely clean and it's clear and the placement and there's like a thread of vibrations going through
Mm.
very clean, it's very clear. It's all about like amplification as well.
Yeah.
To make it loud and the resonance. That's a massive part. There's so much more, of course, but this is just the basis.
Mm.
Um, whereas what I'm learning with folk, you have different parts of your voice. And in folk, you show different textures within those parts. So if there's naturally, like my nan used to call it, like she used to love Patsy Cline. And she was like,
Mm.
I love Patsy Cline because she's got a tear in her voice.
Yes.
She's got a tear in her voice, which now in classical singing, to sing with a low larynx, which gives more spaciousness to the throat, you have to sing as if you're sobbing. Or a really good way to get there is just to pretend you're a puppy and you like making a sound like that makes loads of space here. Uh,
Mm.
but anyway, I went on a different point there. But you know, like the cracks in the voice, and I hear this so much in trad, and like actually there's such beauty in the imperfection of those voices.
I love that. And this is what annoys me. And again, I don't know enough about it, but because I heard a couple of years ago, I heard this band on Grafton Street, they were busking. And I was like, these are amazing. They were so good. Everything about them, their voice, the musicians, really, really good. And I bought their, it was a CD at the time. I bought their CD and I was like, oh, this is not good because it was so clear. It was
Mm.
like they had edited out all the imperfections. And I'm like, oh, I don't like it now. Like, I love the imperfections in music.
Because it's what
So
makes it human.
yeah, so it's like when they go into studios, they seem to make everything so clean. And obviously, if it's meant to be clean, like maybe opera is meant to be more clean or
Mm.
something. But yeah, when you get into the like those songs that are meant to be nitty and gritty, like,
Well, folk also means like music of the people
mm,
as well. And like if it's, you know, where it came from, it was stories. Most of the time it's stories. And most of the time, especially in Irish folk, most of the time those stories are really gritty.
Yeah.
Like they're dark. And
Yeah.
so why would you have a completely clean voice when what you're expressing isn't clean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
And I
you
guess
can,
it's also staying true to your own voice as well, because maybe some people have more of that natural grit.
yes, yes. And then I think as now when I put my singing teacher hat on, it's keeping that grit but making it safe for the
Okay.
body. Because sometimes, you can have proper grit, but then like your poor vocal cords are like, help me, please.
Mm,
That's where the body comes in.
mm.
That's like knowing where to place like the support in the body, how to breathe, posture, and
So talk to me in a way then that if you had somebody who was just starting to come to singing lessons
mm,
and they have like a natural, like nice voice, but they want to refine it in some way or something, and they don't know anything about like breath work or posture or anything. So talk to me in how you refine that and how do you bring in your yoga into that then as well?
yeah, so every person is different. I think
Mm,
that's number one. And it's also learning like how does their brain work? Why are they here? What is their like where do they want to get? Like I have quite a lot of people who come along for like confidence and
mm,
karaoke. I've got like not now, I don't have loads of students now because I'm traveling, but I there was a time where I was teaching like four karaoke lessons a week, which I think is just
that's
gorgeous.
amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was so much fun. Um, and so their reason to come to singing was more emotional release.
Mm,
But then say someone who's like, I really want to like make my music, like I'm wanting to record an album. So
mm,
there's facets. But say if we're like talking about the body, it's definitely a setup of like how you stand. Where does the voice come from? So frequently people will sing just from their throat,
mm,
but actually the voice comes, well, it's a full body experience. We sing like the best sound is when we sing from every cell in our body, where it's a
mm,
full body experience. And yeah, and so it's like waking up, like there's this massive, and I could literally do a whole podcast just on that, massive connection between the pelvic floor and the voice.
mm, mm,
Mm. And then like when you go into yoga, that's mula bandha. And then where the because everyone thinks you sing from your diaphragm most of the time, which is great, but that's not a deep enough breath. That's not
okay.
low enough. And then often because that's Manipura chakra,
Mm,
when you start to place all of your breath just to there, that's causing a lot of tension as well. Like
mm,
whereas actually it comes from the root, but then the Manipura chakra, that the solar plexus is kind of like the cushion of air to help bring that air and that sound out. So it's the support rather than the
mm,
source. Maybe
mm,
that's how it is. And then it's just understanding the swing of the ribs. So like your ribs expand and your ribs come back together. Like inhale, ribs expand, exhale, belly button draws in and up to support.
mm,
So it's just like, I guess it's, and whenever I talk to teachers, like I've not done any somatic yoga training ever.
mm,
Yeah, but apparently it's quite similar to a lot of that.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I
So do
think
you see, sorry for interrupting, but do you see a lot of people who, like even just in your yoga classes, do you see that a lot that people are like only breathing into their chest and they have like zero connection to their
completely enough.
abdominal muscles?
Oh my God, yeah.
I have, I don't know, maybe I heard it somewhere or maybe it just came to me. I don't know. It's probably not my idea, but um like I think it's a lot to do with, as women we're told to like hold your belly in. And there's
Yeah.
this like tension we have in our belly because we're constantly like sucking something in. And then we just, I don't know, seem to lose a connection and how to like relax it.
For sure. And I also think that, like, I remember when I started teaching yoga like 5 years ago, I was just like, whoa, we walk around as if we're just a head. Like,
Mm.
yeah, that we have bodies. And I see,
Mm.
like, that's why I love being in India, because I think just in general, everyone is so much more connected to their body. Like, I remember last time I was here, I was having a singing lesson, and my teacher, this is a really weird story. My teacher like had a pain, and he was like trying to burp but couldn't. And then he
Mm.
just did this like weird twist, put his hand on like his other rib, had like this burp came out, and then he just sat and then just went singing again. But I was like, that is some like next level body awareness there. And like, he's not a
Yeah.
yoga.
But it's
He's
also great to be so comfortable with burping. We're so obsessed with, oh, it's rude to burp or fart. Like, who cares? We need to get over that.
yeah, yeah. And it's just like we're humans and we have bodies,
Mm.
and our bodies have functions. And yeah, and that's like a massive part of singing. It's like owning your body. It's like owning and seeing that your body is an instrument. As
Yeah. And isn't it
like
so beautiful to have your instrument with you all the time?
it is beautiful. It's also like a bit of a it's also really annoying.
Is it? Say that
Like
again?
now you can't switch it off. I
Okay.
can, but like when I was like deep in the classical path, it was like, I went to college 18, 19. I didn't go out much. Like I went out, like I'm not meaning I was like a total hermit, but I wasn't going out partying loads.
Yeah.
I was way too like, yeah, way too fixated on like, oh no, look after my voice, like this
Mm.
needs to be, which, yeah, now that I look back at my 18 and 19-year-old self, I was like, just get over yourself. But, I made up for it in my mid 20s.
Yeah. Good for you. Um, I'm lost on where I want to go now.
Good. Yeah, like,
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
and because I know I'm jumping around quite a lot, but
Yeah.
like then if I went to Chet, so that was when I was 16 to 18, and then that was like Disneyland for musicians, and that was like insane. It was just like you'd have like meal times, and I remember you'd just be like singing around the table, like not in a hippie
Mm.
way, because here I'm in like quite a big it's quite a big spiritual community here, and that is like literally like song circles just happen.
Yeah.
But it was just I remember like the first choir rehearsal we had in our year, our full year. And like I still don't even fully understand it, but they were like, stay on this one chord. So we'd begin on this chord, cut into three parts. And they were like, change this into F minor. And then like some of the people would just like change the note and it would make a completely different chord. And then it was insane. It was like, and I can't even fully explain it, but like the talent in that school was
Mm.
unreal. And like it's like a school full of aliens. Like,
So is that talent are people born with that talent? Some people have it or some people don't, or can you learn to sing? Can anyone learn to sing?
everyone, because if you can speak, I believe you can sing, because what is singing? Uh,
Yeah, but some people do it better than others. I'd rather listen to you sing than me.
I've been trained.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
um yeah, well, that was also a school of musicians as instrumentalists. Oh my God, I need to stop doing that. Um
It's like when you say yoga instead of asana. That's
yeah,
something that's really like I need to just start like constantly saying, no, we're doing asana now rather than we're doing yoga because it's funny. Yeah, anyway.
like that's it. And it's
Yeah.
like we start to, and there's so many similarities between singing, music, yoga, asana. Like
Mhm.
it's a whole like ecosystem, it's a whole web, and
Yeah.
these are threads beneath. But
So is it because it's like a human practice that we've figured out in order to bring balance to ourselves?
what do you mean?
So like yoga is obviously this system that was created in
Mhm.
order to yeah, bring more harmony to ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so is singing kind of the same? Like as humans, we've figured out this way to bring harmony.
guess so. And yeah, like I also think it's just a big part of who we are. And also it's a
Mm.
whole branch of yoga, back to yoga.
Yeah.
So it's like I view like when I teach, I view yoga as the framework.
Mm.
Yoga is the framework and singing is a thread of that framework.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, it's like there's asana teachers and you do the singing part. Like I know you do asana as well, but like
Yeah.
this is the
And
part
also
of yoga that you teach.
absolutely. And if you're an asana teacher, you're still like within that, there's so many threads of like breath, of like
Mm.
energy work, of and of course, that's one of the hard things of like teaching in gyms and that. And
Mm.
the deeper and deeper you get into teaching, it's just like, oh, but this I'm giving such a diluted version of what this beautiful thing is.
Yeah.
Oh, but then also it's reading a room, which I think as a space holder and a yoga teacher, you get so good at reading a room. And that has helped me so much as a singer of like learning
Mm.
a room because I think in classical, I didn't learn that so much. It was
Okay.
very much just like, this is what I do. You come to me or you don't. And now like yoga teaching and singing teaching, it's all energy work. Like that's what
Mm.
and I'm really realizing. So, yeah, of what you were saying about balancing.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm learning that the voice can change energy of rooms, it can change energy,
Mm.
and it can and I'm learning through the voice, you can clear, you can balance, you can energize, you can ground.
Mm.
Um,
So
yeah.
tell me, because we kind of skipped over that about somebody who may not have a natural ability to have such a clear, beautiful voice. Is there anything that you recommend that people, like if someone enjoys, say, karaoke, but they don't feel good at it, is there something that you can recommend to help them?
So yeah, one of my like number one things, which I'm really working with right now, is why do you sing? Why do you
Mm.
want to sing? And so frequently, and this is like my big work. Like this has been June for me of like, why do I sing? Like, especially when my voice was found for me at the age of 8. And it was always like I started doing exams from that age. And it's always been to like for others' expectations or others' perception of what is beautiful, especially in classical. It's like you follow notes, you follow rhythms, and it almost reminds me of a dance mat. Like how in a dance mat, if you like hit that note perfectly, it's like bam, like 100%. And that's very much like, and now I'm really learning to like, but within that, when you're constantly singing for the outside, you're giving your power away and you're
Mm.
getting validation from the outside. And I think also we're taught like, oh, are you a good singer? But
Mm.
actually, the best singing is when you're singing from your heart and you're singing for your body and singing for yourself. And like the biggest thing for me now, like I was in a temple here and like really, grappling. I came here and like because I haven't performed in a while. I've been teaching so much, and I've got really scared. I got really scared with singing in front of people, and especially I've been really switching up styles recently and improvising more in folk and like a lot of like inferiority complexes and all of that
Mm.
which comes up for us all, no matter. I actually think the more trained you are, the more of that mental chatter you get as well.
Mm.
Because the stakes are higher and the expectations are higher.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really, really, really learning to like, for me, it's like, why? Why am I singing? And it came through to me, it's like, sing for God and like whatever God is for you.
Mm.
Like, God could be for, your quiet self within. It can be for source. It can be for the betterment of humanity to just raise the vibrations of this earth. Like, um yeah, and sing for others but not for their approval, like
Mm.
sing for others for the vibrations of their body or for a peacefulness of mind, which then that's why we do yoga as well. So it's all um So yeah, and I guess it's just anything which connects you to your body, which connects you to your and helps you to like go inwards and listen. And therefore, naturally, then when there's an acceptance of self and your sound, then you find your sound.
Mm,
Of course, then as a singing teacher, I will then show, you know, some like practical tips, how to support the voice, how to breathe, where to place the sound. Like sometimes I think one of the biggest challenges for me, which would take it a bit longer, is sometimes people don't sing completely in tune. And so
mm,
that takes, but yeah, I there's a like, yeah, getting the ear in accordance with the larynx and sound. But I'm like venturing more and more into this, but I think meditation helps, like a
mm.
quiet listening. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's like something one day I would love, love, love to delve into more.
Well, it makes sense because everything we spoke about is about balance and breath. And we spoke earlier on about how important listening is.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, yeah, to get in tune or to, you know, to be fully in this practice, that you should listen as well.
Yeah. And like the more and more you get into like as you understand, like the more yoga becomes your life, like the more you get into your asana practice. Like I remember when I got like bam into yoga when I was 20. That's like where like 6 times a week. And it's amazing because I got into the practice. It's just like habits which no longer serve me. I didn't even have to try. They just
Mm,
fell.
mm,
Yeah, and I think that's so frequently we're taught like, oh, go on a diet or like do this, do that. But actually, it's like when you take the time to listen to yourself and to get things more in balance and do things because like I want to have a great time. I
yeah.
want to have a great time. I've got this life. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long, so I may as well have a great time. And it's like not the like shame, guilt, oh, I shouldn't, I
Yeah.
shouldn't. Actually just fill it up with things which you enjoy and then the
Yeah.
bad, oh what, yeah, falls
I
away.
think I probably just have one more question, and I thought I would be able to maybe spend more time on this, but um, so we spoke all about singing, and like obviously when we do mantra, it's
Mm.
quite similar, but are there differences to what a mantra practice is and what a singing practice is? And because for me, like I really want to let people know that to practice mantra, you do not have to be able to sing. And I know we spoke about, get rid of this attitude, if you can sing, you can't sing, but I think people can be a bit shy
Yeah.
when you do mantra in a class.
Mm.
And I would love to, yeah, eradicate that and let people be a bit freer with it. So can you say anything about if there's any difference between the two, or what mantra is to you, or what the practice is to you?
Really, like so kirtan mantra, same in some ways. Kirtan means to sing the name, and it is completely and utterly a practice of devotion.
Mm,
it's it's a practice to open the heart, and that is the first and foremost. The sound, I literally couldn't like give a top, like I could not care. I could not care less. It's more the intention of mantra is so much more about vibration. And
mm,
so if you're singing from a place of opening the heart, you're singing from a place of, yeah, wanting to like combine like union as well. And yoga is union, and with the
mhm,
voice, like when you sing in a circle and listen and allow your voices to really really commune, then that's gorgeous.
mm,
Like I couldn't, like literally could not care less about how it sounds. And yeah, and also some of the most gorgeous music ever, ever, ever. The thing which makes it beautiful is the dissonance and the imperfection.
mm,
And so, yeah, like I always remember I needed this reminder. I had this, I think she was 11 at the time. This 11-year-old, and she had an exam coming up. She had a like ABS, like a classical exam, and she was a bit worried and all of that. And at this point as well, I was, as a teacher, I was quite into like the classical and like, have you done your work? Have you like you doing your practices, technique, technique, technique. And then it was the lesson before her exam, and then I was like, oh Prisha, how are you feeling, how's it going, like how are you, have you been doing your practice, all of that? And she's like, I have, but I was talking to my mum, and my mum said as long as I sing from my heart, that's all I can do, and that will
Oh,
be my best singing. And I was, and that is what I love so much about teaching, because my students teach me. I needed that
yeah.
reminder.
Mm.
So true. If the and like at the end of the day, when you're singing, it's all about a transmission. It's
Yeah.
about like the energy. And so if you're, and this is like, this is what I'm unlearning now of like, perfect and like, okay, body is aligned, breath is aligned, notes know where they're going, everything's
Mm.
pristine and beautiful. But that's like a machine. Like, and I also think that like one day, if slash when more so, like we get like deep into AI and deep into like the technological age,
Mm.
like there's nothing quite like the human heart singing.
Oh yeah. Actually,
No.
last night I was in a restaurant last night and they had singers. So it was a singer, I think a saxophone player and a bass player. And it was all kind of 80s music. It was a little bit cheesy, but they were really good. And so the guy who was singing, I think he might have been Dutch and he was singing in English and he was reading the lyrics and he was a good singer and I really enjoyed it. But it you could just tell it wasn't coming from his heart. He was reading the lyrics and he was just doing his job. And I'm like, he's not passionate about this music. But he was there to do what he was paid to do, and it was good. Like, but like you said,
Yeah.
you know, like if somebody writes a song and they sing it, it tends to be more emotional or you feel it more than somebody who's just covering it
Yeah.
at a
For
restaurant or
sure.
whatever.
And if those songs like covered songs, if you start to bring like a story into it. So like whenever I
Mm,
was singing classical things, we had to study so much of like, okay, what's happening with the characters, or but then like so much of it is visualization as well. Like I always remember
mm,
one song called yeah, Au bord de l'eau by Fauré. And it was the most like gorgeous, but like nothing happened in it. It was like impressionist French. So like yeah, 20th century. And it was all around the time of like where all the artwork kind of didn't make sense, but that was the beauty of it, and lots of colors. And this whole song was basically like you're sat on a rooftop with your lover just watching the world go by,
mm,
like the poetry of that, and that actually like through song you could speak about the magic of the ordinary. And
mm.
actually that's what song does a lot of the time, like it brings what is the ordinary into like something mystical or magical. um
Yeah,
yeah, it is the
that's beautiful.
best.
That is beautiful. Beth,
Yeah.
do you want to let people know where they can find you? Like, what do you like? Because you're doing singing lessons online, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Want
Yeah.
to let people know about that, like how they can contact you, what, and do you do singing lessons for everybody? Like I said, like you don't have to be already a singer, do you? It can be for anybody.
My youngest student was 6 years old, and my oldest student was 75 years old. And then
Mm,
I teach everyone in between. Um, I've mostly taught teenage girls. I love it so, so, so much, because I think, so much is happening. There's so many emotions, and actually just like being in a space with a teenage girl and actually like giving them that support as well. Like, and just like listening to them and being like,
mm,
just like, I don't know, a massive part of singing as well is like that first like 10 minutes of like a check-in with someone, be like, how are you? um
mm,
and I think when you're like not a family member, you're not a friend, you're like completely on the outside. Like
yeah.
I don't know any like many people in their life, so actually just being that and that's a massive part. Like the voice is free, like
Mm,
speaking and singing, like when
yeah.
we're burdened, then
Mm.
we use the voice, but actually it's just like, and just the truthfulness and the honesty of like, this is where I'm at, like this is what I'm
Mm.
working with today, which is also our asana practice as well, of
Mm.
like being completely honest of like, this is where my body's at right now, and
Yeah.
listening. But yeah, I teach. I've taught so many people. And yeah, my teaching is definitely transforming a lot more now into combining yoga and singing together.
Mm.
And yeah, if you're into like understanding more of like the philosophy of this all, then I am a good teacher for you. We will definitely go down tangents. I'm always learning, and I'll throw this into my lessons. But if you're interested, I feel like this podcast is a really good depiction
Yeah.
of what what it's a journey. It's one of the most wonderful journeys. Like in finding the voice, you find so many other facets of yourself.
Mm.
It's like it's really, really, really beautiful. But yeah, to find me on Instagram, I am bethmoran.music. And I'm currently in the process as well of, I think over the next few years, I want to write a voice work method, combining the two and looking at, yeah, maybe I'm going to see where India takes me, but in the future, I definitely want to do an online course,
Great.
combining the two together. In my own practice at the moment, I'm really, really, yeah, building up this connection between the pelvic floor and the voice. So maybe that will
Mm.
start to come through more.
That's
Um,
really interesting. And I feel like, I don't know, will you come back again and do a podcast with me? Because there's so much more to talk about. And I think I'd love to get more into like the menstrual cycle and how that affects our voice. Because I'm raging I didn't ask you about this, but I don't want to go into it now because I think it's too big a topic
can
at
I
the end
say,
of the podcast. Yes, go for it.
okay, so it took me up until the age of 22 to understand that there was a massive connection between the voice and the menstrual cycle. And it took my singing teacher, who this was like my fourth singing teacher at college, who was a man, 79 years old, and I got so well with him. But like this was my first male singing teacher ever. And I got into the room, I was on day one, and the piano was there, and I was literally keeled over the piano. And he was like, "What's wrong with you today?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm just not feeling that. I'm no, 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 no." He was like, "No, what's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, well, like lady things." He was like, "Oh, you mean like," which like, why did I have to say lady thing?
I
Do you know?
know, I know. It's so cringy, isn't it?
And all the female teachers before, if it was like my period, I would say, but then they're like, right, we sing through this.
Mm.
But it was just like, oh, so you're on day one of your period. And then he went through the science of what was happening. He was like,
Mm.
okay, so your all of your energy is going towards like your womb, and like your body is literally like bleeding, and all the energy is going to there.
Mm.
Is the part which supports the voice. So he's like, number one, you're not going to support your voice very well at all today, as you shouldn't really.
Mm.
And then because your body's doing like it's doing enough as it is. And then your cords, he was like, when you're menstruating, your cords have extra mucus on them, which then means if you sing really high, it can actually be quite damaging for them. But this is like, we're talking like super high, like stratospheric, like opera
Yeah.
high, which doesn't matter normally. Um, but now in like some places in Germany, I've heard that if you're employed by an opera company, I think on day one of your period, you're allowed a day off, because actually it can be quite detrimental to the voice of what I've heard.
Mm.
And and even but yeah, and we just had a super chill lesson, but I was just like, why has it taken a man to tell me that, like, to inform me about this?
And why did
Like,
it have to wait until you were like falling over the piano? It should be part of the lesson before
literally,
you're, yeah.
and from then on, and because also, when you're training loads and you're practicing loads, like, that's the other thing as well. As a musician, you spend so much time in a practice room by yourself,
Mm.
like hours a day. like by yourself. And so you're there with your shadow a lot. Like there's a lot of frustration which comes up, a lot of anger. And there would have been times in the past where like, I wasn't singing very well because I was day one of my period and I should have just been like chilling. And
Mm.
they're like trying to push through, which is the last thing you want. And then, yeah, ever since that was a massive turn point. And then and then I started like having so much more compassion to myself. And now it's like number one whenever, especially, yeah, like with all of my female students, but especially like the teenagers, I like
Mm.
ask them straight away. And that
Okay.
first, oh, are you asking? And I'm like, no, this is super important. And so, yeah, especially with the young ones, I really try to get like I use singing lessons as like a massive learning for so many things of just like body.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yes, it's like it's so valuable and like if they get embarrassed around me, I don't care. They see me for literally an hour a week. Like I'm not like their mom, like I'm not
Yeah.
like their aunt, like
But also
yeah,
you're normalizing it, which
yeah,
is amazing.
exactly. And then it's amazing. It's like I've had like my like 13-year-old come in and she's just like, oh, I'm on day two, like I'm not feeling that great. And I'm like, you're 13 years old and you have that awareness.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's
sick.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go, Beth.
Oh no,
Okay.
like Kitty brought this into my life.
I know,
And
she's amazing.
yeah, and it's just, but it shows that like it's not even, it just shows the power of sharing this knowledge.
100%.
Younger and then it just more and more and like there's such an uprising of the feminine at the moment. I feel it's so
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah, definitely. But all for another podcast
Yes.
because
I have one
we could
question
definitely, pardon?
for I have one question because I feel like your audience might know. I'm
Yeah.
looking for a Sharnos singing teacher, someone to teach
Okay.
like Irish singing. I did like an online course, but I'm really looking for a one-to-one teacher. Um,
Okay.
I really like I've started singing in Irish and it's like it feels so good and I just want to go like
Mm.
fill in. But I'm just trying to find a teacher. So if anyone knows of someone, then yeah, get
We'll
in
put it
contact.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Beth Moran music.
Beth Moran doc music. Perfect. I'm going to be really cheeky and I'm sure you hate getting asked this, but do you want to share any of your voice with us before you go?
You can do, absolutely. My voice is yeah, but actually that doesn't matter. But it's not great. But what is great? What shall I sing? How about Red is the Rose?
Lovely.
My granddad used to sing this to me. Let's do it. Okay. And yeah, just to whenever I sing, I take a few moments before just to really like feel into my body and my breath. Come over the hills, my bonny Irish lads. Come over the hills to your darling. You choose the road, love, and I'll make the vow. And I'll be your true love forever. Red is the rose that in yonder garden grows. Fair is the lily of the valley. Clear is the water that flows from the buoy. But my love is fairer than any.
That was stunning.
Thank
I love it.
you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much for that.
my
I was
favorite.
questioning, will I ask it? Will I not ask it? Because,
Oh,
it's, yeah, I just
good.
think it's really special. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, and if anyone is looking, like I do have some slots online for teaching singing. So if anyone is interested, do get in contact. I've got really good Wi-Fi here.
Yeah, you
Um,
do actually.
I'm up a mountain. I'm like, yeah, up a mountain in a place called Dharamshala by the Himalayas. I'm so impressed by this Wi-Fi.
Brilliant. Okay, Beth, thank you so much for being here today, and it was great to see you.
Yeah, so nice to chat, Katie. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for making me feel so comfortable. And yeah, this was super like easy and flowy. Thank you. Yeah, and enjoy your time away.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. First of all, I need to apologize for the background music. I'm sitting in Athens Airport, getting ready to board a flight to Rome. I'm really excited. I can't wait to go to Rome. I've never been. And I just taken this time because I've got free Wi-Fi. I want to try and do the last bits of editing, get the podcast uploaded tonight. But just realized I didn't do an outro. So it's now or never in a busy airport or not to do one. So I decided, hey, why not? Just record to say thank you for listening, to remind you online classes will continue Mondays at 7 p.m. And a big thank you to Beth. I really enjoyed this week's episode. She was amazing. So, as always, I'm looking forward to chatting to whoever is next on the podcast. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will chat to you soon.